Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. As you might have guessed, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is having a big impact on card prices this week. A lot of players want to put together new commander decks based off some of the new cards coming out, and you're going to see that as a reoccurring trend through the video today. Also this week, there's still some interest in vintage cards, especially reserve list cards. We've been seeing that for a few weeks now. Not the same intensity that we saw last year, but a little bit of interest for sure. You'll notice that as we go through today too, and a whole lot of other things. Quickly before we get into it though, just a fast reminder. If you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order Kamigawa Neon Dynasty products there. They have everything you see on the screen, as well as the commander decks too. They're on a separate page. If you look down below, I'll leave 2 separate links so you can find what you're looking for. Plus, they have a whole lot of other things on their website besides Kamigawa as well. Remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use that promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We're going to jump right to the Modern Legal Spotlight this week. Not a lot happening in the world of Standard or Pioneer, as a matter of fact, but there are some Modern cards going down in value, some going up in value, although I must say the key driver for the most part here is Commander. First, we have Artificer's Intuition. This is down 235 this week to 1508. Now, traditionally, this is a card that only saw a little Commander play. Last week, we saw a pretty big spike out of this card due to a Kamigawa Neon Dynasty preview. The card that was previewed was Containment Construct. We talked about it a lot last week. If you take those 2 cards along with Lion's Eye Diamond, Elixir of Immortality, you can create an infinite mana loop for blue mana, then you just need a win condition of your choice. So once that started circulating on social media, a lot of people became interested in this combo. But ultimately, like I said last week, I think it was more of a speculative thing more than people actually trying to put together the combo. Lion's Eye Diamond, of course, is a very expensive card. This week, we're already seeing the retraction. Now, I will say, however, there are some new commander deck lists built around Kamigawa cards that are running this. The Reality Chip is one that I saw, as well as Tamishi Reality Architect. Next, we have Aboro Palace in the Clouds. It's down 274 this week to 8104. This is retracting after some recent increases in Modern. This is in Mill. Commander, it's showing up in some deck lists around Tamishi as well. Kusarigama down $280 to $9. This was one of the first cards to spike when we first started seeing Kamigawa Neon Dynasty preview cards. However, after a few weeks of increases, we are seeing this come down a little bit as it tries to find its new price point. It is showing up in some new Commander deck lists around Kamigawa cards, things like Ishin 2 Heavens is 1, and Ryu Storm's Edge. Cavern of Souls, this is the copy from the list. It goes down 352 this week to 79.79. This was added to the list in Caltime, and it did not leave the list until now with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, so it was in there for a number of sets. Because of that, I think the price of this card has been at least stable. Now, when you have a card from the list, it doesn't necessarily, if it's only in there one set, do a whole lot for prices, but when it repeats set after set after set after set, eventually you get a decent amount of copies entering the marketplace. Anyway, the reason I say this card would most likely be more expensive is because it sees a ton of play. In Modern, it's in Amulet Titan, Elementals, and much more there. Legacy, it's in Doomsday, Mono Green Cloudpost, and more there too. Vintage, you'll find it in Humans. Plus, it is a very popular Commander card. It's in a lot of different builds, including Alper Markov, which has been seeing a lot of play recently. Skarg the Rage Pits is next. This is the copy from Plane Chase 2012. It goes down 449 to 127. So this particular copy of the card spiked a few weeks ago when it became dry online. Finally, we see some retraction now that copies are back out there. It is in a number of different Commander decks, though, including Tovolar Dire Overlord / Tovolar the Midnight Scourge. Similar story here with Denizen of the Deep, the copy from Portal 2nd Age. It goes down 464 this week to 2247. This copy spiked a few weeks back just due to being hard to find in good grade online. Note, however, that even though it is down, this is still a very inflated price. I wouldn't expect anyone to pay $22, $23 for this card. That's not realistic. But because there are so few copies out there, the asking prices are dictating this value a little bit more so than other cards we're seeing today. Once in a while, though, you do see this in Commander Runo Stromkirk / Crothus Lord of the Deep decks. And the last card going down in value is the Onslaught copy of Wooded Foothills. Been here 2 weeks in a row now. This is down 477 to 87.81. These original Onslaught fetch lands got pretty hot over the course of last year. Now you do see some retraction here or there from some of them. Fetch lands are always going to be highly played cards though. This is in multiple decks in Modern, Legacy, and Commander. First card going up in value is Sword of Fire and Ice. This is the copy from Modern Masters. It's up 273 this week to 59.64. So this is just basically a rebound from last week when we saw this particular copy dip. It is in Modern, Death and Taxes and a few other decks at times in the format. It also gets a lot of Commander play in various builds, but I have seen some players looking to pick this up as an upgrade to the Upgrades Unleashed Commander deck. I've also seen this in some fresh deck lists around a card from that deck, Kosai Penitent Warlord. And the Command Zone podcast mentioned this not too long ago as something you might want to include in a Commander build around Ryu Storm's Edge. Honden of Cleansing Fire. You're going to see a few Hondens today. This is the first one. The Champions of Kamigawa copy is up 232 this week to 751. The Eternal Masters copy is up 276 to 766. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is giving us a cycle of monocolor enchantment creature shrines and uncommon. And there is a set booster mythic, which is a legendary enchantment creature shrine with 5-color identity. That is Goshinte of Life's Origin. Now, I do see players building new Shrine Commander decks around Goshinte, but many others are just updating the already popular Sisei Weatherlight Captain Shrine builds. Both were discussed recently on the Command Zone podcast. Additionally, I have seen a few deck lists around another new card running this too, and that's Greasefang Okiba Boss. Honden of Seeing Winds, here's another one. Eternal Masters up 282 to 799. Champions of Kamigawa goes up 337 this week to 874. Again, players are putting this in Sisei and Goshinte Commander builds. However, I've also seen this in a few builds around a different card as well. This time the card is Tetsunari Toad Rider. Next is Painter's Servant from Shadowmoor up 354 this week to $70.64. Painter decks simply have been better in Legacy now that Ragavan Nimble Pilfer has been banned from the format. This also does appear in some Commander builds too, usually with Grindstone. Last card in this section, Inkai Servant of Oni, the Plane Chase 2012 copy is up 573 this week to 39.33. This was added to the list in Kamigawa, so this is a ninja and a rat, so the card is going to be getting more Commander play when Kamigawa Neon Dynasty comes out. Currently, you do see this most frequently in Commander Yuriko the Tiger Shadow or Maronar builds. Both those decks will see more play now with the new Kamigawa cards, no doubt. Plus, this is in some deck lists around a few new cards. Satoru Umezawa, Greasefang Okiba Boss, and Ishin 2 Heavens is 1. And that quickly takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. Remember, there's still market manipulation out there in the vintage world, so be careful. I don't talk about the cards typically in this section that are just being egregiously manipulated. So if you see something that doesn't look real, most likely it's not. Always keep that in mind. But what I do like to talk about in this section are cards that do see play in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or cards that are just popular among collectors. Remember though, in this section of the video, because there's few sales for most of these cards in any given week, we do have to look a little closer at the asking prices. So the prices on the screen here are going to be more reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website. And just remember, when it comes to those prices, the values you typically see are somewhere in between the card value for a high-grade raw and a high-grade graded copy. Now, if a price on the screen isn't lining up with true sales that I'm seeing, I always point that out, but that really wasn't the case this week, so let's see what's happening. Savannah from Revised, not a big percentage increase here, but I wanted to include it because I just wanted you to see how a number of these Revised dual lands are moving up again after a slow week last week. This one's up 240 to 376.49. Time Spiral, this is up 251 to 182.50. This is in Legacy High Tide, and of course, Legacy is changing a lot with that recent banning of Ragavan. This is found in some Commander builds too, like Nekusar the Mind Razor, for example. That Anthologies Mountain that you see on the screen is going up again. It's up $261 to $9 this week. Basically, it's a white border reprint of the Arabian Nights Mountain. Periodically, we see this spike. It happened a few weeks ago. Since then, it came down. Now it's jumping up slightly, trying to find its new price point. Every once in a while, I do think somebody goes online, tries to pick up a bunch of these so they can put them in a deck or a number of decks. Many players prefer to have basic lands in white border because they're easier to see when you're fetching. And of course, it doesn't take a lot of copies leaving the marketplace to see a big spike or a lot of copies coming back to bring the price down because there's just not a whole lot of copies out there at any given time. Taiga from Revised is next. It's up 279 to 425.33. Tolarian Academy. Now this is banned in Commander, but in Vintage you see this in Paradoxical Outcome, Grixis Tinker, and much more. It goes up 372 this week to 145. Scrubland from Revised up 372 to 376.99. Intuition from Tempest is up 473 this week to 189.99. Now in Legacy, this is in Sneak and Show and Omnitel. This can also show up in a number of Commander decks. Another revised dual land here with Tropical Island up 705 to 699.99. Sarah's Sanctum is up 949 this week to 314.99. You'll find this in Legacy Enchantress. Now traditionally, this is also found in enchantment heavy commander builds like Sithis Harvest Hand, for example, which some players want to update with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty cards. There is a huge enchantment focus in that set if you haven't been paying attention. As a matter of fact, Sarah's Sanctum is now showing up in some new commander deck lists too around some of these new cards. Go Shinte is one example, but also Light Paw's Emperor's Voice. Badlands from Revised is up 1042 this week to 473.71. Mana Short from Unlimited goes up 1132 to 8133. Sarah Angel from Unlimited goes up 1242 to 8647. Mox Diamond from Stronghold up 1603 to 649.99. In Legacy, this is in lands, also Selesny as well as Saltite Depths. This is also in a number of various commander decks, including the popular Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. Underground Sea from Revised up 1765 to 970.20. Icy Manipulator from Unlimited up 1905 to 169.05. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga up $36.97 to $1,043.77. This is in Legacy Elves as well as Maverick. It's in Vintage Squee Hollowvine too. Also a great commander card in a lot of builds like Chatterfang Squirrel General or Sithis Harvest Hand, for example. If you're lucky enough to own one to put in those decks, that is. Reverse Damage from Unlimited goes up 46.21 to 59.99. Nightmare from Unlimited up 48.14 to 84.98. Tetsuo Umezawa of 56.48 to 256.86. Now, typically, these reserve list cards from Legends and these older sets, they kind of have a life of their own. They move up when they dry up in the marketplace. Sometimes they move back down if people are trying to sell. They're not as tied into gameplay typically or news. But of course, in this case, there's definitely people picking this up because of the Kamigawa lore. And the last card in this section is Repentant Blacksmith from Arabian Nights. It goes up $73.97 this week to $169.97. Yeah, I know, basically this whole video has been the Commander Spotlight, but I got more Commander cards to show you. So the cards in this section are moving at least in part because of Commander, but there could be other reasons too. I'll let you know as we go through. Flickering Ward, this is up 203 to 1354, and this is also in Commander Sithis, and a number of other decks too. Not to mention it is in some deck lists around new cards like Light Paw's Emperor's Voice and Tamishi Reality Architect. Grim Monolith, again, not a big percentage increase here, but it's up 208 this week to 319.99. It's a solid commander card and combo enabler in various decks, and in Legacy you'll find this in Colorless Cloudpost. Goblin King from 6th edition. This copy's a little dry online this week. It's up 217 to 673. This is in Commander Goblin builds like Krenko Mob Boss. Because of the themes and locales of the products coming out this year, it is possible that we could see a lot of Goblin support. Chrome Mox from Double Masters is up 228 this week to 74.99. You do see this in many commander builds, including again Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. It's also in a number of legacy decks like Blood Moon Aggro and Curses. Mantle of the Ancients. This is from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms commander deck Aura of Courage. It goes up 229 this week to 635. Great card for enchantment heavy or equipment heavy commander builds. It is showing up in a lot of Light Paws deck lists now. Gemstone Caverns, the original copy from Time Spiral, goes up 236 to 34.34. So this was added to the list with Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and it is sticking around into Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, so that is worth noting. I have seen these in Commander, Yuriko the Tiger Shadow, and a variety of other decks. It is a big modern card too. You'll find this in Crashing Footfalls, Dredge, and much more there. Masako the Humorless, up 238 to 12.98. Now, there has been some speculation that players may want to add this to their Ishin 2 Heavens as one commander builds, but in reality, I'm not really seeing this show up in deck lists, at least not yet. Time will tell, I guess. Mind Leech Mass, this is up 247 this week to 499. Now, this did see some increased commander play not too long ago in Umbra Sphere Manifest decks. Now players are putting this in early deck lists around a card from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, that is Satoru Umezawa. Attacking with an invasive creature and then bringing Mind Leech Mass in with ninjutsu is a good way to get the powerful combat damage effect to trigger. Force of Will, this is the Double Masters copy of 248 to 112.47. This is in many different commander builds, including the popular Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. It is also, of course, a legacy and vintage staple found in multiple decks in those formats. One more shrine. This is Honden of Life's Web. Now, there are some other shrines that are moving between $1 and $2 out there, so pay close attention. But of course, for this video, $2 is our threshold for talking about cards. And this one makes it. The Champions of Kamigawa copy is up 261 this week to 450. Again, a lot of Commander players want this for Sisei or Go-Shintei builds. And this is another one showing up in some of those Tatsunari Toad Rider deck lists too. Eater of the Dead. This is in Commander Phoenix God of Deception builds a lot of times. It was the target of a buyout not too long ago, and it is still settling into its post-buyout price. It's up 273 this week to 55.95. Razor Claw Bear. This is an old card that's yet to be reprinted, hard to find in high grade online. It's up 323 this week to 48.18. You do see this in Commander Ayula Queen Among Bears builds. Survival of the Fittest from Exodus, up 329 this week to 259.99. This is in a variety of Commander decks, including Sithis again. Femeref Enchantress, up 338 to 23.24. Now, this does get a little Commander play in enchantment-heavy builds at times, like Sithis yet again. It is also in some early deck lists around a new card, Setsuki the Living Lore. Metalworker returns this week. It is up 524 to 164.95. It is in a variety of Commander builds, but it is expensive, so it's not a real easy pickup if you want to add it to a deck. However, if you already own one, I have seen people putting this in to upgrade the Buckle Up Commander deck, or put it in fresh builds around Kotori Pilot Prodigy from there. Lake of the Dead of 533 to 128.95. This is in some different Commander builds, like Carrick Son of Yawgmoth, for example. It is a reserveless card, though, so it doesn't take too much to move it. Speaking of which, here's Nameless Race up 873 to 24.97. Recently, reserveless cards and some other cards from the Dark have been pretty hot. Eater of the Dead we talked about earlier. But now this one, as well as one more card we're about to see, is spiking from that set. When it comes to gameplay, it doesn't really see any play to speak of. But like the new Shrine Creatures, this does not have a creature type. So there was some chatter about this card online as people discussed that concept. Maybe that prompted someone to buy it out, maybe not. But regardless, this definitely looks like a buyout. Fervent Charge is up 954 this week to 1176. This has seen only a tad bit of Commander play in the past, but now a new Kamigawa Neon Dynasty card is pushing this. Many are putting it in Commander lists around Isshin 2 Heavens as one. Fervent Charge in those builds was an option mentioned recently on the Command Zone podcast that could have brought some more attention to the card too. Replenish up 961 to $111.62. Great card for enchantment heavy Commander decks like Sithis. This is showing up in deck lists now around a couple new cards from Kamigawa, Go-Shintei again, and Setsuki the Living Lore. In fact, this was also mentioned on the Command Zone podcast as a card you might want to include in Setsuki builds. Sliver Queen, the Sliver Lord that's on the reserve list. Sometimes you see this as a commander, but more often it's part of the 99 in a Sliver build. It goes up $10 to $359.99. Triangle of War is up $13.99 to $16.99. Okay, so this does see a tad bit of commander play, but it is another reserve list card that appears to be the target of a buyout this week. Beyond that, though, some copies were listed at an extremely high price, which will throw off pricing data. I think if you shop around for this one and be patient, you'll still be able to get this at a reasonable price, and I'm pretty sure the overall value will start to retract pretty quickly. But I guess, again, time will tell. Wheel of Fortune from Revised. It goes up $20.47 to $370.36. Yet another good commander card and combo enabler that is found in a lot of decks. The last card in the section is that other card from the Dark that I was alluding to earlier. This is City of Shadows. It goes up $21.43 to $135.06. This does get a little commander play, but it was the target of a public buyout. Alpha Investments also did a video recently about this card, discussing the price trends that have been happening. That could have brought some more attention to it as well. And that brings us to the Premium Spotlight. So much like the Vintage section, the cards I discussed in this part of the video don't see a lot of sales. So the prices you see on the screen are going to be more reminiscent of something you might see on a price tracking website again. However, if the prices are not lining up with what I'm seeing when it comes to true sales, I'll point that out. When it comes to selecting cards for this section, it's always hard to do because there's always so many cards moving up and down in value when it comes to the premium market. But I try to pick some that feel relevant with the news that's going on. Cards that are not just moving because they dried up for the moment or because they were bought out, but things that might be seeing some real natural growth. So let's see the first card. Crack the Earth. Now, this is the first time we're seeing this one today. It's the foil copy, though, from Betrayers of Kamigawa that's moving up $19.53 to $23.05. When it comes to true sales, so far I have seen high-grade copies sell for about $6, but this spike has just started now and sellers have already quickly began to raise their prices to stay ahead of it. It is a common though, so I'm sure more foil copies will be showing up in the marketplace pretty soon. The reason there's interest in this card though is because there were 4 of these in a modern Boros Luris deck that won a modern challenge on MTGO this week. And the last card is the Apocalypse foil copy of Fervent Charge. It goes up $29.90 to $56.13. Ever since the non-foil copy began to spike, I have seen the foil copies selling for more. I did see a high-grade raw copy sell for about $40. The asking price for copies left are pretty high, so this does not seem like an unrealistic price at $56.13 right now. That's going to do it for this episode. As always, I appreciate you if you stuck with me to the end. Thanks for being here. Until next time, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.